Luke 19, verses 45 through 48. This takes place directly after the triumphal entry. Jesus goes straight from entering the city to the temple, where we see the temple clearing. Now, this temple clearing, I want to just make a quick point, is also seen, interestingly enough, in John 2. And the big difference there is that John puts this at the beginning of Jesus' earthly ministry, year 1, but Matthew, Mark, and Luke all put this at the point of the triumphal entry, which would be the end of Jesus' earthly ministry. This would be year 1, and this would be year 3. So it often comes up a question: did the temple clearing happen at the beginning or at the end? Who moved it? There are many reasons for this, but my personal opinion, and the opinion actually of many, is that there are not one temple clearings, but two. And this makes sense because we know that Jesus goes to Passover in year 1 from John 2. We know that Jesus goes to Jerusalem for Passover in year 3. And it would make sense that anytime Jesus walks into the temple, if he sees many money changers there, he's going to kick them out. So the fact that it's very possible that there are two temple clearings, one at the beginning and one at the end. And each writer would have their reasons for emphasizing one over the other, which I'm not going to get into in this one. We'll just unpack Luke as Luke presents the temple clearing. The other note to make before we get in is that Luke's temple clearing is the shortest explanation of the events. He doesn't talk about driving out people with whip or flipping tables. Luke has by far the most truncated version of this, and we'll get into maybe why that is, and nevertheless see all of the wonderful things here in this text. So here we go. When Jesus entered the temple courts, so we've got our little temporal marker here, when, right? It's our temporal marker. Jesus has entered the temple courts. You have to remember as well that the temple has multiple courts. The court of the Gentiles, and then the inner court, and then the temple itself. And it's very likely that we're talking about the court of the Gentiles right here. He enters this place in the temple courts, and he began to drive out those who were selling. When this happened, when he enters, he began to drive out those who were selling. Now, immediately, we should ask two questions. Number one, why would Jesus do this? And number two, who are these people who are selling? These are the two questions that should just kind of jump off the page for us. Again, why is he driving them out? And two, who are they? What are they selling? So to give the history on this one, people from all over the Roman Empire would come to Jerusalem. Jews from all over the Roman Empire would come to Jerusalem for Passover. And in their area, they're often using a different coin. Definitely using a different coin, because the temple itself used a specific shekel for like the temple tax and for the purchase of lambs or doves, animals for sacrifice. And that was part of the temple's job, to have these animals available so that someone could buy them for this sacrifice. If you're coming from Rome, you're probably not bringing a lamb or a dove with you, so you're going to buy one there at the temple. And you're going to have to exchange your currency to get it into the shekel. So this is really a service that the temple was to provide, but the money changers here, as we're going to see in a moment, these who are selling have done two things. Number one, that they've kind of overwhelmed the Gentile portion of the temple, and we'll see that here in this quoted text, "My house will be a house of prayer." So I'll come back to that in a second. But the other and the greater issue is that they were selling at a profit. So it was no longer simply a service provided for worshipers. This had become an opportunity for particularly the chief priest's family, and for the money changers to turn a profit. So they were now taking advantage of the worship of the people and using it to become rich. And so Jesus says, "It is written," which is really an interesting way to begin this whole thing. It is written. Jesus isn't going to give a new rebuke. He's going to give an old one. This is going to be an old rebuke, meaning the people of Israel currently are leading as their forefathers had. And that's not a good thing. "It is written," he said to them, "My house will be a house of prayer, but you have made it a den of robbers." So that word "but" is really important. It's contrasting these two quotations from the Old Testament. This one is from Isaiah, I believe 56. And then this next one is from Jeremiah. And I'm forgetting right off the top of my head if it's 7 or 9. One second here. It is Jeremiah 7. Jeremiah 7. And so to understand these verses, obviously we need to understand Isaiah 56 and we need to understand Jeremiah 7 to see why Jesus would be using these two passages of all the passages. So "it is written," right? He said to them, "My house will be a house of prayer." Again, this is from Isaiah 56. Now in Isaiah 56, the context here is about all nations worshiping Yahweh in Jerusalem at the temple. And it's God promising that this will be the case, that his house will be a house of prayer for specifically all nations. It's interesting, if you go read Mark's account, he will include that line. "My house will be a house of prayer for all nations." Notice that Luke does not include that line. But that means that one aspect of the reason of why, this question we were asking earlier, is that they are impeding the Gentiles' ability to worship Yahweh, because they've taken where the Gentiles would be praying and they've made that into the money market area. So that's one issue, right? "My house will be a house of prayer." Isaiah 56 is being brought up here. And then here's the second reason, but you have made it a den of robbers. And that's a really interesting one. This comes from Jeremiah 7, where the people go out and they rob, the people go out and they worship Baal, and then they run back to the temple, saying, "We're safe." It's kind of like having a base in a game of tag where nobody can tag you. They go out, they do evil, they run to the temple, and they say, "Hey, we're safe here." And in Jeremiah 7, he says, "You've made the house of God into a den of robbers." And then Jeremiah goes further. He says, "Go look at Shiloh," which was the place where the northern tribes who were by the time of Jeremiah, they were gone. He says, "Go look at Shiloh. Go look at their temple there. It's gone. It's been destroyed. And the same thing is going to happen to you." And of course, Jeremiah's words come true in the year 586 BC, when the temple is destroyed, when the Babylonians sack the city of Jerusalem. Here we are, over 600 years later, the temple has been rebuilt. And as Jesus invokes Jeremiah 7 here, you can't help but wonder, and here's a new question, is Jesus saying that he's going to once again destroy the temple? And of course, that's what John brings out, is that when the people ask Jesus, by what authority, Jesus will say in the book of John, he'll say, "I will destroy this temple and raise it in 3 days," right? Of course, he's talking about himself. But we wonder, is Jesus bringing up Jeremiah 7 because once again, the temple will be destroyed. And indeed, it is destroyed in the year AD 72. The temple is destroyed. So it's a really interesting set of verses that Jesus brings up. Isaiah 56, talking about the house of prayer for all nations. Jeremiah 7, in the midst of this sermon about what the people have done. And so here, when the people who are selling are present, they have made the house of the Lord, because of all their selling, a den of robbers, right? And of course, the priests don't feel like they are the same as the people brought up in Jeremiah 7. They would say, hey, that doesn't apply to us. We're not like them. But Jesus is saying, no, you're just like them. You are just like the people of Jeremiah 7. So this up here becomes a strong warning and really a judgment to those who seek profit with the Lord's gifts. And we think of, the televangelist, the one who gets on TV and says, if you give me $20, the Lord will turn that into $40, that sort of a thing. The strongest possible condemnations are being used here from Jesus on people who do such a thing. We should never run the church with that focus on profit. And it's not that profit's wrong. There are many proverbs that would tell us that that's fine. But let's never use the things of God to make money for ourselves. That is quite dangerous. Quite dangerous indeed. Okay, then we get to verse 47. So that first one deals with Jesus, clearing out the temple. But in verse 47, we get a new focus, and these verses, 47 and 48, they're really setting up chapter 20. So all of this is a setup or summary, setup/summary of chapter 20. Everything that he's going to introduce here in a moment. And it also looks back to what happened before. Jesus said to his disciples, I will be rejected by the chief priests, the teachers of the law, the leaders of Israel. They will reject me. And we see that happening right away. So first we get, every day Jesus was teaching at the temple. Just a quick summary statement. Every day he was teaching at the temple. This is a public place. It's right in the house of the Lord. The chief priests are present. They're hearing everything that's being said. The teachers of the law are present. They're hearing everything that's being said. The leaders of the people are there. They all hear what's being said. And if we go read like Matthew, for instance, we discover that Jesus actually gives the 7 woes here to the chief priests and the teachers of law. He gives the 7 woes directly at the temple. And so it is very clear that the king is coming, and that the people who think they have authority, the chief priests, the teachers, the leaders, they want to kill him. They're trying to kill him, yet they could not find any way to do it because all the people hung on his words. And so there's a little lesson here about authority. These ones, the chief priests, the teachers, the leaders, these ones are going to be what Psalm 118 will say. These are the builders. Jesus is going to have a parable here in the next couple verses. These are the workers in the master's vineyard. And they think that they have authority. In fact, they're going to challenge Jesus and say, where is your authority to do this? But verse 48 reveals that they don't have any authority. They can't find any way to do it because all the people hung on his words. The fragility of their authority is being revealed here. And then the eminence of Jesus' authority is being revealed here because he's the one going into the temple courts, driving out their sellers. He's the one in the temple teaching. In every way, Jesus is saying, this is my house. So beautiful. It's not your house, chief priests, teachers of the law, leaders among the people. It's not your house. It's my house. You got to love how Jesus does that here in these verses. And again, this part, 47 through 48, is going to set up the real authority of Christ demonstrated in the next chapter. And so even as we get into the next chapter, we've got this first lesson up here about money, so we got our first lesson on money, and then we got this second lesson on authority. And so if you're getting ready to continue to follow along in our sermon series, then you should be thinking, okay, Jesus has the authority in my life. Are there any places where I need to work on surrender to him so that I'm not like these chief priests and teachers of the law and leaders who rejected his authority? I don't want to be like them. I want to be in that place of surrender. So one prayer for you as we get ready for this next part of Luke is just to say, Lord, where do you want me to be surrendered to you? So that's Luke chapter 19, verses 45 through 48.